I'm Matthew Perry, guest hosting for Piers Morgan. Now we're going to switch gears a little bit. There are a lot of misconceptions about alcoholism and addiction, and my next guest is an expert. He's Dr. David Sack, CEO of Promises Treatment Centers and Elements Behavioral Health. Welcome, Dr. Sack. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I wanted to ask you a couple of questions just in the simplest form. A lot of people think that addiction is a choice. A lot of people think it's a matter of will. That has not been my experience. I don't find it to have anything to do with strength. But I was hoping that you could lay out for us, just in layman's terms, talk about addiction and alcoholism and what's going on there.
Sure. Well, you know, half of the people in the United States over the age of 12 drink. So alcohol is a very common phenomenon. But when you look at who has a problem with alcohol, it's only about 4%, or 1 out of 25 people. We now know that there are important differences between people who have problems with a drug or alcohol and people who don't. So that genetic factors probably account for half of all of that risk, meaning that who your parents are, how you raise, those things contribute dramatically to whether or not someone's going to have an alcohol problem. You know, it is a choice to go for treatment or to not go for treatment, but the issue of how you respond to a drug or alcohol depends on your makeup, and that makeup is largely genetically determined.
Okay, yeah, and so let's talk about that. It's my understanding that it's a two-faceted disease. It's an obsession of the brain and an allergy of the body. I will let you jump in anytime if I say something incorrect, that it is a disease, that the American Medical Association in 1956 deemed it so. So what's going on just with the body and the mind of an alcoholic?
Sure. Well, the original concept of this allergy of the body really was the idea that people who become alcoholic respond to alcohol differently. Science has sort of caught up with AA in the big book, and we know that there are two different ways that they respond differently. One is that they're actually less sensitive to the toxic effects of alcohol. So they get more of a buzz, more of a high, they're enjoying themselves more. And the other is they develop craving. That people like me who don't become alcoholics, we have a drink and we get sleepy, get a little relaxed, we go to bed. But people who are prone to alcoholism actually start to crave the drug after they're exposed. And we can actually show that these differences are driven by differences in how they absorb and metabolize alcohol and are different across countries and cultures.
Yeah, I often noted that, to me, I always had this theory, and it's just my theory, that if a normal drinker has a martini, they feel a little dizzy and they feel a little goofy. If I have a martini, for the first time in my whole life, the world makes sense. I feel comfortable where I'm standing, and I've always had this theory that if alcohol felt to me like it did to you or to a normal man, they'd be drunk all the time too.
Well, I think that's right. You can only become addicted to a drug that gets you high in some way, normalizes you, makes you euphoric, gives you a buzz, and those things are very different. We know that the people who are more likely to become alcoholics actually metabolize alcohol a little bit more slowly, so they have more of it around, whereas people like me, we metabolize it quickly and we get the toxic effects of alcohol. So we start to feel nauseated, dizzy, headachy, and so we don't have much reason to keep drinking.
Now, we lost a very talented actor last week. Corey Monteith passed away, presumably from drug use. And what could have been done to save this guy? What could have been done?
Well, you know, Corey had been in treatment before. He was in treatment recently. According to news reports, it was an overdose of heroin combined with alcohol. You know, that is probably the most dangerous combination. You know, and when you look at the treatment for heroin, there are medicines that can specifically block the effect of heroin so that if somebody goes out and uses, they won't overdose. And one of those medicines is called Vivitrol and naltrexone. And really one of the problems that we have right now is that it's vastly underused, that clients don't want an injection, families don't think it's going to be necessary.
Yeah, I noticed that for me, the fact that I never tried heroin is the only reason I'm able to sit here. I'm positive. If I had tried that, I would not be around. And there seems to be a lot of drugs are going down, but prescription pills and heroin is on the rise. It seems to me there's a little bit of a heroin epidemic going on. When I was in high school, there was pot in our lockers, and now there's heroin.
Well, the real epidemic is in prescription opiates, which belong to the same general category as heroin. And, you know, really and truly, the increase in overdose deaths is directly related to doctors prescribing and overprescribing pain medications to people with drug and alcohol problems who then go on to become addicted. You know, the reality is that drugs go in cycles. You know, we have an epidemic of amphetamines, and we have an epidemic of cocaine, and we have an epidemic of opiates. But in this particular case, the availability of prescription opiates is what's driving this epidemic. Half the people who start report that they got the drugs for free from a friend or a relative.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that no person could have made me stop. You know, no person could, and as Dudley Moore said in Arthur, it would have to be a very big person that could make me stop. Dr. Sachs, stay with me. Coming up next, we're going to talk about an effective way to keep addicts out of jail and save lives. And guess what? It's bipartisan. And so am I.
75% of people who complete drug court never see another pair of handcuffs.
Never see another pair of handcuffs.
We'll never see another pair of handcuffs.
I'm Matthew Perry in for Pierce Morgan. Welcome back. It's drug court time. Back with me now, Dr. David Sack, CEO of Promises Treatment Centers, and joining us, Albie Zweig, who went through the drug court system back in the 90s, and Wes Huddleston, the CEO of the National Association of Drug Court Professionals. So welcome, guys.
Thank you.
So let's start things off, Wes, just in its simplest terms. Tell us what is drug court?
Yeah, well, drug court is a life-saving courtroom that's staffed by criminal justice professionals who are specially trained to actually treat addiction and mental illness. And it's unlike any courtroom you've ever seen, in that the judge, the prosecutor, the defense attorney, probation, treatment professionals, everyone gets together and they actually work as a team to actually try to help drug-addicted offenders get their lives back and get clean and sober.
So this is for it's for first-time, non-violent drug offenders, correct?
Yeah,
well, or I could say that slower, but that's who it's for primarily, right?
Actually, it's for offenders who are really pretty seriously engaged in the criminal justice system. They may have been on probation many times or in and out of jail. The key is that they're seriously addicted to drugs and nothing else is working. And so this team, this drug court team, actually fashions a sentence or fashions a plea agreement that connects them to treatment services that truly helps get them their life back.
Great. And what is the success rate of drug court?
Well, 75% of our graduates never see another pair of handcuffs. We just heard that in the PSA, but really that doesn't tell the entire story. Actually, we cut crime in half compared to jail and prison. So we literally can cut crime up to 50% in a community by using this drug court model versus sending somebody to prison who's addicted. And that saves taxpayers an absolute ton of money because offenders are not being rearrested, they're not victimizing society, and it saves a ton of money.
So we have a thing that saves lives and it saves money.
Yeah.
There's not too many of those around. We have a success story here that I want to tell you about today. We have Albie Zweig, who went through the drug court system, as I said, back in the 90s. And so you were a hope-to-die, on-the-streets heroin addict.
Correct.
And last week at the drug convention in Washington, you stood up next to your wife and your little baby.
Right.
So how did that happen? How did you get from there to now here, sitting here on CNN?
Well, it's a long story, but basically, I had a really vicious heroin and cocaine addiction. I was distraught. I was arrested. I was charged with a felony. I was facing 4 to 12 years. I didn't know what to do. There was a part of me that had given up all hope because I had tried to quit so many times. I'd been through rehabs, I'd been through methadone maintenance, I'd been through the withdrawals. I was desperate, but I ended up going and speaking to my parents one last time, and I remember my mom saw right through what I was doing. And she said, if you die, we're the ones who suffer, right? We're the ones who are left to pick up the pieces here. And so that was that was a huge moment for me. And I said I would try one more time. And I was lucky because I was put into a drug court, and the stability and the structure of drug court changed something. and I started to have pieces of my life that I had lost come back to me. I had the opportunity to go to law school. That led to a job in the same public defender's office that had represented me in my case. And this February, I was appointed as a magistrate in the same court that had really helped to save my life 20 years before. People who manage to take care of their addictions enjoy unimaginable success.
And stories like that fuel my engine, because I want stories like that to get as much ink and as much press as the tragedies that we read about as well, because there is a lot of hope. There is a tremendous amount of hope, and people change. And I think I want that message out there just as much as the negative things that are out there. So let me ask one of you, what advice do you have for families that and loved ones that have, that their father is drinking too much, that somebody in their family or a loved one is clearly in need of treatment? What do you think those guys should do?
I would say seek treatment, seek a professional as quickly as possible. Treatment works, and people do recover. Millions of people recover every year from this disease.
Yeah, so get them into treatment.
There's a myth that someone has to choose the day they're going to go to treatment, that somehow they're going to wake up that morning and they're going to say, this is a good day to get sober. And what we've learned from the drug courts, from physician programs, and from pilots programs is that when there's a consequence, it motivates people to get treated. Families can't wait for the right moment. They have to fight to try to get their relative to agree to go, and they have to push for that if they want to be successful.
Yeah, it's really difficult, because in my case, as I said, there was no person that could make me go. I had gigantic consequences if I continued drinking. There was no person. It happened for me when I went, oh my goodness, I'm going to die from this tomorrow if I don't get in. So, but there is a little window that opens for people, right? And you just got to time it exactly right.
Yeah, and for drug court, that moment is a pair of handcuffs, and people come into the criminal justice system. They're not volunteering. They're literally coming in handcuffs. Thank God there are judges that actually care about what happens to them and will monitor that case all the way through treatment. And in drug court, what we do, kind of the magic is we bring the participant back in front of the judge to get checkups every week or every 2 weeks. The judge is able, to really monitor and adjust the treatment plan as needed.
Yeah,
that's a huge point, is that we know when the offender comes back, we have drug test results. We have a probation officer there who can tell us how the offender's been doing. So if the individual isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing, we can sanction or we can punish quickly. And that quick sanction is what really helps to modify a person's behavior.
And when we go to Washington and we walk through the halls of the White House, everybody loves this idea. It's bipartisan. Republicans love it. Democrats love it. But I did want to at least give voice to, not everyone loves it. There must be people that are not for drug court. For those people, who are they? Who's not on the drug court side, and what is their argument?
Well, they really are one of two camps. One camp says that really all drugs should be legal. Heroin, methamphetamine, cocaine should be legal, and their criticism is that drug court is a criminal justice response, and they just believe it's bad policy. On the other hand, we have some prosecutors and some law enforcement officials who, as you and Dr. Sack so eloquently discussed right before this segment, just believe that addicts are bad people, that they're weak and they should be punished and incarcerated. And they're really turning a blind eye to the research that this is a disease and that it's treatable. So those are really the two camps that are against us. My biggest concern about drug court is that we're not reaching enough people. We're reaching, about 140,000 people on any given day in America, and there's 1.2 million people that need us.
1.2 million. How many people have we saved?
Well, in the past 24 years, we've saved 1 million people.
Saved 1 million people's lives.
Literally 1 million people have gone through drug court.
That is fantastic. For more information on drug courts, go to allrise.org. Coming up, the star of Parenthood and Gilmore Girls, Lauren Graham. Thanks, guys.